bills and more bills. Oh, that's better. It's Northumberland National Park. Doesn't a picture like that just make you want to be there?
And here we are on a wild and blustery day, but that's really what national parks are all about. It all began in America with the creation of Yellowstone National Park way back in 1872. There was a real spirit of adventure and progress in those days, but at the same time there was a growing recognition of the need to protect areas of wilderness, places where people could go to refresh themselves, literally to get back to nature. And those American national parks like Yellowstone and Yosemite really have that spirit of wilderness, and they're owned by the nation. European national parks came much later. Most landscapes in Europe are farmed or settled, even the most remote areas, but they too still have that spirit of wilderness, and they are afforded some degree of protection to prevent damaging developments, also to conserve wildlife and to ensure the future for important features. Britain's a crowded and busy island, and one of the most important factors in the creation of national parks was the demand from a growing number of town dwellers who wanted to get out into the countryside. There was also a general awareness that some of our finest landscapes were in danger of being lost forever. Progress might have been slow, but in 1949 an Act of Parliament was passed which paved the way for the national parks that we have today. Places where the emphasis is on conservation and the quiet enjoyment of the countryside by all sorts of people. The first park was the Peak District in 1951. Gradually, the family of national parks grew so that there are now 11 covering over 10% of the land area of England and Wales. There's every chance that there'll be more. Northumberland's probably the wildest and certainly the least populated of all the national parks. It's a sweeping, rolling landscape covering 400 square miles from the high grassy hills of the Cheviots on the Scottish border through the heather-covered ridge of Simonside and the open, rugged slopes of Redesdale to the Windsill and Hadrian's Wall. This land has been farmed for centuries, so really it's human activities that have helped to create a landscape that we now think of as natural. In many ways, it's neither natural nor national, and most of it's privately owned. If we divided up the national park between all its owners, it would look something like this. 54% is owned by farmers, 23% by the Ministry of Defence, and 19% by Forest Enterprise, the landowning part of the Forestry Commission. Only 0.2% is owned by the National Park Authority itself. So, what do these landowners think about being part of a national park?
I find working with a national park very easily. It's an upland farm. A lot of the good land they're not really interested in. It's the poorer wetland that they're really interested in, which will be very difficult to drain anyway. So for me it works well. There's a good payment. You know, they're actually paying us so much a year, an annual payment, to leave these bad parts. Well, for generations we've tried to improve land. Every farming generation has come onto the land to try to improve it and leave it better than we found it. But this way we're farming now, it's going to be in a poorer state when we leave it. In terms of farming, in terms of conservation, it'll probably be a lot better. The men on the ground are very good, the wardens. If I need assistance with walkers who are causing a problem, they're here immediately. I find it very helpful. You get people come with dogs and they think their dog doesn't chase sheep, but it's not the fact that it chases the sheep, it disturbs the sheep. Really, I would like to see people have more respect in lambing time. The rest of the year, it's not really a problem. Parks help with the grants towards the stone walling, the upkeep of the maintenance of the traditional stone walls. And that helps a lot. Also shelter belts. You know, we've had tree planting schemes put in. So in the future we'll have shelter from those for the livestock. So they'll help tremendously, as well as from the conservation side. No, working with them has been very good.
Well, Forest Enterprise is responsible for the management of the forests which are actually owned by the nation. and they're now looking at a policy of multi-purpose forestry, where timber production for the timber using industry is the primary concern, but becoming increasingly important now is the conservation of wildlife and landscape management, and also the provision of wide-ranging recreational opportunities. And of course a place like Kielder handles all of those different facets of forestry extremely well. A new technique called restructuring is the policy which is being practiced here, and the objectives of that are to turn the old even-age plantations of yesterday into diverse plantations, the forest of the future of tomorrow. And that's mainly done by managing better the cutting of the forest and the replanting, and the creation of open spaces within the forest. One of our objectives here is to try and go for as much as 20% open space within the forest. Much of that is along existing areas of watercourse where we don't plant up, or if we are planting, we're using more broadleaf trees. And so by restructuring, we're improving the appearance of the forest, which is obviously very important from the national parks viewpoint, and also providing more opportunities for wildlife conservation, and the recreation potential is much improved because there's more open space, more places for people to walk, etc.